Welcome to Animation for All. My name is Nathan Adams. I am your host. This program is presented to you by Shamble Studio. Hello everyone. Welcome to the exciting last part of our Jack-o'-lantern series. We're in Blender 2.63 and this last part, what we're going to do is we're going to animate our pumpkin. So right now we're in our pumpkin scene. Like I say, we're in Blender 2.63, and one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to actually animate, or rather automate, this pumpkin so that it can talk. So to do that, instead of using Blender at the startup here, what we're going to use is actually another program called Papagayo. Papagayo is very useful for automating the lip syncing, making it just so it's a much easier process to do. So right now I have actually a couple of things that I want to show you. So the first one is that we have our Papagayo software, and we're going to open a wave file. Okay, so I'm going to go and select my wave file. Okay. And it was in here. Alright. And open that up, and we'll just play it right here. Okay. So let's see. I don't know if you're able to hear that or not, so I'm going to do this again. I'll take this off. I have my headphones on at the current moment. Okay, so if you're able to hear that, I say great. So what we need to do is that we need to sync up this sound. So let's so what we're going to do is this sound we're going to put in the spoken text right down here at the bottom. Now in order to get Papagayo, you end up going, you actually go to lostmarble.com, and at lostmarble.com you download Papagayo. It's a free program. And so anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in the text, Happy Halloween. Okay. And there we go. Alright, in this case, for the phonetic breakdown, we have English, Spanish, Italian. I want to go with English. Alright, and now you can see that we have all of our words here, plus we have the phonetic breakdown of each of these words that we can align with these sound waves. So you'll notice here, this is pretty out of line here, okay? And in fact, I'll just let you hear this again. And we're going to compare it with the mouth movement right here. So we press play. Not exactly on cue, is it? So what we need to do is that we need to actually line these up, and to do that we're going to grab these, cancel that, I was doing a right click, okay, and then we move it according to the sound. Okay, that looks about right. I'm going to move this over. Okay, now let's see how this goes. This one right here, you'll notice each of the laughs has a spike, 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 spike. Okay. And one thing to make sure that you want to do is match the frames per second with your sound. So in this case, 24 frames per second is what I'm using, so I want to go with that. Okay, just a few more adjustments here. Move this over. Okay, and I miscounted these laughs here. So I actually have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm only showing 5. And there's actually a gap here as well. Okay. Alright. So I need to add another couple. Oops. Alright. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Alright, and there's going to be a little bit of redoing here, of course. So, there we go. Alright. And sometimes it's kind of hit and miss with the, as far as getting these so that they're either lengthening or moving. Alright, we'll try this. Come on, you. There we go. Couple more movements here, and then we'll be done. Okay. Okay, let's play through that. It's a little bit of off sync. Okay. Move this one over. Now let's see how it goes. Actually, I'm going to lengthen some of these so it blends just a little bit better. And there we go. And there we go. Alright, so join me in the next segment as now we take this data and we import it onto our mesh. Alright, now we're going to animate our pumpkin with the voice. So we're still in the Papagayo, and what we need to do is we need to export our voice. So let's export voice, and here we go. Okay, I'm just going to name this something meaningful, and I'll do JOL for jack-o'-lantern underscore reading, and there we go. So now we should have we should have a .dat file. So I'll just pull that up so you can see it. And I put this into this folder to JOL animate. And there's our .dat file. Alright, and then let's close out of Papagayo. There we go. Alright. Alright, now what we're going to do is that this object, the mesh, this will be the one that we're going to be animating with all those letters. So you remember how I had you do U, MVP, etc., doing all these different shape keys? Well, those shape keys are all in conjunction with Papagayo's system of animating the different phonetic sounds. Now, one thing that we want to make sure of is the fact that we have Papagayo, the importer, installed on our machine. So to do that, we go into the Blender, whatever version of Blender that you have. This is in your program files, Blender, and then you go to Scripts, Add-ons, and then the one that you're looking for is IO underscore import underscore lip sync underscore importer. If you don't have this installed onto your machine, you can get it from Blender's website by going into the Python section and downloading that. And so what we do next is that we go into our user preferences by doing Control-Alt-U. You'll notice I've actually brought this up by typing in sync, and here we go. We have import, export, lip sync, importer, and blinker. Okay. Alright, so included is Papagayo as one of the programs that it uses. So we'll check that. And and then we'll exit out of here. Okay, now that we have our pumpkin mesh selected, we're going to import this file by hitting the little folder icon and go to our save path. And then getting that .dat file. It's very important that you get .dat and not .pgo, because the .dat has all the voice data that you're going to need, or rather all the lip movement data. And now we have a few of these parameters. The frame offset, we'll go with about, let's keep it at an offset of 0. So that means it'll start at frame 1. And then this SK scale by default is at 0.8. And I can only assume that what that means is that when you're doing your shapes, that they only go 0.8 part of the way versus 1. So I'm actually going to bump it up to 0.9. And then the last thing that we do is plot keys, please. And then now you see all these lines coming into your timeline, and those are all those shape keys. So if we go through, start scrubbing this, you'll start to see these mouth movements on the jack-o'-lantern object. And now the last part we'll do over here is we do control right arrow, or left arrow I mean. Let's go into our video editing, and we're going to add a sound strip. And we actually have our directory here for this file, and we have the JOL greeting.wave. So we'll add that sound strip. We want to make sure that this lines up with all those keys that we just put in. Otherwise it's going to look pretty goofy. So now we need to look at this. Okay, so we put our start frame from 49, which is what it's showing here, to 1. There we go. And now we'll be able to go to our playback, go to audio scrubbing, now we'll go back into our default by doing the control right. Okay, so now we can scrub through this. Pretty creepy sounding, right? Alright. Okay, and now that we have that sound imported in to our scene, we can do some animating with that. But I don't think that we want to just have just this mouth movement. We're going to want to actually see some facial expressions to go with it, and maybe a little bit of body movement to go with. And also, we have this really cool lid bone right here that we can basically flip his lid, or just have it kind of pop off at some random moment So in the next segment, I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, now we've gotten the spoken part for our pumpkin. Now it's time to add some expressions. A little bit of body language, or in this case, head language. So first thing we'll do is that we'll insert some keyframes at some points here, and we'll just kind of listen in on when the character's talking, and then go from there. And we'll start out with where he's kind of raising his eyebrows to kind of look friendly, where he's saying happy, and then when he gets into Halloween, that's when he starts to get more of an evil leer to him. Okay, so let's say about here we'll add keyframe to these eyebrows. So we'll get I for insert, location, rotation, scale. And then next, kind of move this down. Alright, and I'm going to get this little record icon so that we do automatic keyframes whenever I do any movements. So let's move these up a little bit. There we go. And then what we can do also is we can actually take these keyframes and duplicate them to another spot by doing Shift D, moving them over here. I'm going to move that over a little bit. It looks a little bit too even. Kind of make it mix. Kind of want to mix it up a little bit. And then about here, I'm going to drop the brows and really severely drop them, so all of a sudden we have this real evil look. And then let's say right here, actually I should probably back up a couple of frames. I insert location, rotation, scale. And then we can actually drop those. And if we pull that out there, okay, we'll duplicate these, Shift D, then pull them up, and these ones we'll do we'll insert right there for these mouthpieces, and then going to do another movement where we pull this out, pull this up, and then we're going to copy the same movement mirrored for this one. Do Control C to copy that position, and then we'll do Shift Control V, because Control V will copy that into another spot, or it'll just basically copy it and put it on that same bone, but Shift Control V will put it on the opposite bone. So there we go. Another thing I want to do as well is about there, a couple frames back, I had to insert a keyframe. I, location, rotation, scale. And we'll do a little bit of squash there. And then a couple frames back here. I'll add location, rotation, scale for this lid. I'll kind of have it pop off his head there for a moment. And then same thing, we're going to duplicate the keyframe so it goes right back into its default position. So this one right here, that's where they're in the original position. Shift D, GX. Okay, there we go. Okay. Go back there. Then we'll just do a few movements of this squash one. Kind of randomize it a little bit. And then I'm also going to do the same for the body's base. So somewhere about right here. There we go. And go. A tiny bit more. There. Okay, just a couple more. I'm just trying to put subtle movements into this to give it a little randomized effect. Alright, last thing we'll do is set our animation length here. Okay, and I think just for this animation length we do 24 frames per second. I'm thinking about 180 is where we'll stop here. So we'll do that. And that'll be the end of our animation. So join me in the next segment as we just do our final preparations for the actual animated file. Alright, now we're in the final segment of this. So we're going to do our final rendering. So what we'll do is we need to check some settings for our final rendering. And to do that we go into this little camera icon, which is for render. We have this on cycles render. We've had all these settings as far as like number of samples that we're going to do per frame and everything, right? So we'd set that up in a previous tutorial. And so what we'll do, I'm going to collapse these for a moment so I can just kind of collect where I'm going to be going. Okay, so dimensions, we want to make sure, yeah, we're at 100%. I like to use the 1080p thing for the dimensions. And we have our start frame at 1 and our end frame at 180. Okay. And now let's go to output. And we're going to change this from PNG to one of these movie codecs here. I usually use H.264. It's been successful for me. And then, you know, I'll just like end up converting it into like a WMV or something afterwards. This will get your H.264 AVI file. So go to our encoding. So we have our AVI H.264, and right now it has audio codec as none. We want to change that. I always do MP3. If there are better settings, I'd love to hear it and see what you recommend. So now that we have those set up, just want to do some last checks on the rest of our stuff. We do, let's see, it was integrator. So we have 30 samples per frame for each of these frames. And we decided that was a good place to stop our rendering processes for each frame in the last tutorial. So I think that we have all of our preparations, and what I'll do is that I'm going to do the rendering, and I'm going to show the final render here after all is said and done. One final note as well, you noticed I went to the output, the output, and I put it straight to H.264. Normally I would recommend that you do the PNGs and put them into a render cache, but just for purposes of this tutorial I just want to show you straight to the H.264, the AVI file. Another thing that I neglected to mention is that we need to change our directory from TMP, and we're going to go into, let's see, actually we can go to JOL animate, and then we'll just call this JOL animate. final. Okay. And then by the end you should have that name with the suffix of 0001-0180. That'll be the number of frames that it goes through. Let's accept that. And then let us begin our rendering process. And like I say, I'll see you at the end of this with the rendered result. Thank you for watching this episode of Animation for All. Leave feedback. Tell me what you think of this episode. I always enjoy doing this. And have a good one.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you for watching Animation for All. This has been a production from Shembol Studio. For more information, go to shembol.blogspot.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter.